Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. In this episode, we're jumping right into episode 3 of Gundam IBO. This was pretty interesting, and shout out to Ian and Alter. They actually hung out with me while watching the episode, taking some notes, and got some cool perspectives from them. But yeah, let's get started. Orga and Mikazuki are always up to something, but I guess it's cemented that these two characters are kind of the main focal point, and I'm interested in further understanding their dynamic. Orga seems like the leader, Mikazuki seems like the guy that just makes things happen, but so does Orga. Okay, we're introduced to this character again early on, and, you know, speaking with the others, I was like, okay, who is this character again? And apparently it's a female character. She is older than Mikazuki, but she apparently likes him. I mean, this whole beginning was kind of goofy, and maybe it's that contrast from how dark this episode can get and the previous episode, but we're seeing that Kudelia character, right? Kudelia? But what a name. And I guess she's just hanging out with other of, I guess, the more kitty-like characters in this. They're making food. She's cooked something, and then someone gives it to Mikazuki, and she's like, no, I don't want him to have it. It tastes bad. It's pretty goofy. It didn't really belong here, but I guess that's kind of their way of building that type of dynamic with these characters, you know, the lighthearted moments. All right, and something's going on here. They're cooking some food, but it seems like there's a plan at play. What could it be exactly? All right, and so the group that Mikazuki and Orga are with had a plan in place, and that was to sort of poison their food or drug the food to knock them out, tie them up. Execute one of the main leaders of that group. In the group, it's different. There's the first core, which is like, I guess, the higher ranking or the main people kind of in charge of this plantation we're at. Then there's the third group, and that's kind of where Orga and Mikazuki are. These are the less desirables, but Orga has a plan, and like we've been seeing, it seems like Orga always has a plan, uses Mikazuki to help carry that out. And this is a way for Orga to kind of get the top spot amongst the security group here, because here's what's interesting. You have Kreis, group security. They're in this place where there's mining that happens, and right? And what it is as people age here, and this is where kind of the child labor abuse thing sort of happens. They see how children work, and they put them based on how good they are at something. That could be battling, and they're known to die in the front lines, or it could be they're good at mining or whatever. And so it's the division of these groups that then cause, I guess, the inner turmoil. So we're not even talking about Earth versus Mars here. This is just the groups within this Kreis security group. But Orga has just taken over, so yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, now they're in that office we saw from, a couple episodes ago, where I was like, okay, here's some characters are being introduced, like the higher ranking officials that make things happen, and now Orga's in that spot. So this is where we're seeing the main things turning, and I guess this actually even tells me kind of the quicker pace IBO tends to have at the beginning of making the moves, kind of showing where there's derision, kind of showing where there's conflict. And within that, you got dynamics of characters, right? Because you've got characters that grew up in this place. You've had some that had more entitlement than others. But it seems like Orga is wanting to do the right thing amongst this group of people, because it almost seems like any one of these people trying to make a play, to lead or whatever, could cause trouble. But Orga's got something in mind. Now everyone's just hanging out at the Gundam. I gotta say, it's growing on me a little bit, especially when we get some of these close-up shots like this to see more of the geometry going around it, where you can see the classic Gundam look, but also newer things going on. I mean, this really calls for me to be building the model kit. All right, then out of nowhere, we get this old Crank showing up, but that's his name. His name is Crank. So he was one of the main dudes in the earlier conflict that happened originally. Gallahorn was coming down to try to get Kudelia. We had this main guy that was like, a kid, I'm fighting a kid, and then he kind of backed up. But now he's back, and he just wants a duel. He wants a duel to kind of, I guess, be the proper way to go about fighting for getting Kudelia or to take over. But it's interesting, like seeing the honor in here, considering these are the bad guys, whereas the ones considered the good guys are a little more disorganized, and amongst them is people that kind of grew up in ways to make them not make the best decisions. So that's another interesting dynamic here. It's a cool look, though. I love seeing that red coming off the shield, the red fabric. I mean, where are you going to find a giant red fabric like that? The guy pulled it off. Yeah, the Prime Minister's daughter, Kudelia, is now like kind of saying, yeah, just take me. I don't want any fighting. So this is where we're kind of seeing the ideals that are going to be echoed throughout this. come up, and yeah, that's no fighting, please. All right, Mikazuki boarding the Barbados to put it in action. Orga kind of goes into detail again about Mikazuki. You know, they talked about the surgeries that some of these pilots have to have in order to pilot those mobile workers. They have that installed now on this Barbados, but it's just kind of really showing off how much of a badass Mikazuki is, just because he goes in there, he does what he needs to get done. I like that he's kind of, even in the subtitles, it says, you know, sniffing the bracelet there. Interesting to learn more about that. Little tidbits like that are very interesting. All right, and there's just great shots here. This stuff looks great, you know, so when it comes to Gundam, I like how different enough this is. And it has those Gundam tropes, but it's also doing it just different enough. Like even the environment here, kind of seeing the Mars landscape, the design of these mobile suits that aren't too similar from previous Gundam designs, but at the same time, it has enough of that going on. And so the battle here is pretty cool. In fact, Crank's unit destroys or breaks in half the Barbados staff, and I'm sure there's a name for that. But what's really neat is, I guess it still had some gimmicks left with it. Mikazuki picked up the end piece of his mallet weapon, and it actually had some propulsion that pushed forward, had a blade come out, went right through the cockpit, almost taking out Crank. And so it's interesting because he didn't die. Crank is just sitting there saying, look, I came down here, either I'm going to die or I'm going to complete my mission. And he asks Mikazuki to take him out. He doesn't want to have to do it himself. Really cool shot, really good imagery. He kind of ending that thread, you know, from when Galahorn attacked previously to try to get the Prime Minister's daughter, but we can kind of see then exactly the type of threat that Mikazuki is. And this Kreis security group, but the name has changed. This is now when the name changes to Tekkadan. Or Tekkadan. The whole thing is it's supposed to be like iron flowers, so the idea that, you know, something is able to stay alive and have the willpower to move forward despite everything that's happening. And it could just be you know, for representing this group, kind of staying alive while being under attack, being under oppression. It could also stand for what some people like Mikazuki have to go through, where they have the surgery, they're interfacing with these mobile suits, and it hasn't killed him yet. And really, Mikazuki is that ultimate Setsuna Hiro Yui style character that I really like because there's really not much to him in terms of personality. He just sits there motionless, does what needs to be done. He can be a human when he needs to be in terms of how he might interact with characters. Because it's interesting with that other random character that shows up every once in a while that apparently likes him. How does that develop? Anyway, so that was it for episode 3. And I got to say, I really do like where this is going. I think they're throwing in some interesting dynamics while kind of the pace is kind of moving quite a bit. Because yeah, we're 3 episodes in and I do like the sort of dynamics I'm figuring out here. They didn't even spend too much time on Galahorn. It was mainly that Crank dude coming down to duel. So I'm interested to even get back into that side. So a lot of good stuff going on here. IBO is turning out to be something very cool. So anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for all the supporters that make this possible. If that's something you're interested in, check the links below in the description. Also, there's a link to our Discord where we have a lot of fun, just chatting, talking. That's where Ian and I were talking about IBO episode 3. So yeah, a lot of fun there. But anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, be cool.